Hi there, happy Easter. I'm going to do some hot cross buns for you. They're Nutella hot cross buns, and I know they go a bit wild at, the bakeries around town, and in fact you could get hot cross buns pretty well on Boxing Day. So get this one in your repertoire because it's really, really delicious, and of course it's homemade, and you kind of can't beat a homemade hot cross bun. So first up, we're going to make this beautiful dough, and I'm using a roux. So this is a recipe that I do use quite a bit, or a method that I use quite a bit. We're making a cooked roux at the beginning, and it just helps the flour and the dough in itself be really, really super soft and light and fluffy. And it's something that I learned from a Chinese lady when I was doing the Asian cookbook for Thermomix. So we've got 120 grams of buttermilk. And buttermilk also is really, really helpful for breaking down gluten. So it helps, because it's acidic, so it helps the gluten breakdown, or the gluten strands break down, which then makes the dough much nicer as well. Okay, so 30 grams of sugar. This is golden caster sugar. But you can use any sugar, that's okay. I just like the golden caster sugar for most things. And 30 grams of flour. This is baker's flour. Whatever flour you're using for your bread, I recommend you use that. And then we're going to cook that together. So we're going to cook it for 3 minutes on 80 degrees. On speed 3 because we want it to blend together and not have any lumps in it. Let's see if I need an MC or not. Oh no, that's okay. So we'll be back in 3 minutes. Okay, so that's done its thing. It's quite warm, so you don't want to put your yeast into that because it's too warm, and it's sort of runny still, but it has cooked. So we're just going to make sure that we put our ingredients into that in the right order. So don't put the yeast into the hot roux. And it's still a bit lumpy around the edges, but it's not a big deal. When we need it, it will come together. So now we're going to put the remaining ingredients for the dough into the bread. So we're going to start with our baker's flour. So we've got an additional 350 grams of baker's flour going in. Bit more, there we go. And we've got some pink salt flakes, so just a pinch of those. I think we've got some butter, so I've got Pepe Saya butter here, so just 20 grams of butter. And I think save the rest for when they're cooked. We've got some more buttermilk going in, an additional 210 grams of buttermilk. You can use your own buttermilk that you've made if you've made your own butter. 215 between friends. And then we're going to put in some zests of lemon and orange. And we're also going to use some doTERRA oils just to really punch the flavour through. And some cinnamon and some mixed spice and some chocolate, of course. And you can use dried cherries or any dried fruit of your choice, but we're using Inca berries today, which are quite nice and sour, so it kind of knocks sweetness back a little bit. My favourite other tool in the kitchen, the microplane. 2 swipes and we're done. Oh, it smells beautiful. You can use the doTERRA oils for this as well, but I think this is pretty. You need the colour as well as the flavour. Makes it sort of speckled. Just going to show you that because it's so pretty. Yeah? Okay, and then we're putting in a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of mixed spice, just a couple of shakes, and then some oils actually. So we've got some lemon oil, just a couple of drops. Lemon's quite strong, but it's up to you. And some wild orange, which is kind of one of my favourites. Just a few drops of that as well. And then the cinnamon bark is very strong, so we probably won't put as much of that in. Maybe 2-3 drops of that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. So you can use a sachet of yeast, you can use fresh yeast, you can use dried yeast. Make sure it's active yeast. I'm going to carefully measure 2 teaspoons, but it's kind of not a proper teaspoon. But it's kind of, you know, it's up to you. If you wanted to get really precise, it's 7 grams of yeast, so you can get your drop scale out and do your 7 grams. If you really need to be precise about it. Okay, we're going to bring that together. And I always mix my dough initially for a few seconds on speed 6, just to bring the dough together before you start kneading. And you can hear it'll come together and you'll hear it. So about 10 seconds. Oh, it smells amazing. And then we're going to knead it for, I think, 2 minutes or 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Just to really work it. Work it good. Okay, so we'll be back in 3 minutes and show you that dough. Okay, so now we're going to add chocolate, because we can, and our berries or cherries, whatever it is, dried fruit that you would have on hand. I wouldn't get too excited about, you know, following the recipe. Just add whatever you've got. So these are Calibut chocolate, but you can add any chocolate as long as it's in small amount, you know, small pieces. It's 100 grams. You don't have to have chips. You can use chopped up chocolate, it's fine. And then the Inca berries. And now we're going to knead this for a minute as well. So at the moment the dough's fairly white with some speckles through it, but by the time we finish this, the dough will take on a different colour, and you'll see that when it comes out. So just 1 minute, just to help that get into the dough, and then we'll be back. Okie doke, here we go. Oh, a lot of it's gone up the side, so I'm going to have to re-knead that into the bread. That's funny. But we do have a different colour dough now, so I'll just tip this. Oh, it's running away. I'll just tip this out. And you can see it hasn't all incorporated, but we'll get it in there in a minute. Just get your dough out as much as you can, and then I'm just going to flick it off. And then get it out. I might have to put a bit of flour in here. So this is my tip for getting the rest of your dough out. Just put a little teaspoon of flour in there. So I've got that much left in there. Just like a little small amount of flour, a pinch, a bit more than a pinch. And that'll just help get all the little bits off. Oops, I don't like wasting it. Okay, so now I'm going to, this is a floured bread mat, and I recommend using a bread mat. It's just easier to work when you've got inclusions in your dough. And you've just got to get all those chopped chips and the berries into the dough, because then once it rises, it will actually surround the inclusions, and then you won't have a problem after that. Make sure they're right in. And I might just put a bit more flour on there just to make sure that we won't stick. And we're going to let that rise for quite a while. I need it to be doubled before we form the buns. So we'll be back. Okay, so the dough has risen. Looking pretty nice. Now we need to form the buns. So to be really, really precise, we're going to weigh the dough. So I do about 60 grams per bun normally, 60 grams of dough. So just start cutting them up. into pieces, and then, you know, you can kind of go from there. So just to give you an idea, I think that's too much. Yeah, that's 75 grams. You're going to need well floured hands as well, actually, so otherwise they'll stick. That's 65. That is 65 grams, but you know, the Thermomix scale is not the most perfect scale. Luckily I have Bree with me. Bree's here today helping. So she's gonna weigh out the dough for me. Thanks, Bree.
You're welcome.
She's glad she wore makeup. She's coming. And then all we're gonna do is form the bun by, you know, once you've got the weights, then just push it into the palm of your hand, and then we're going to get some Nutella. So this is Notella, my Notella, and it's nice and cold, so it'll actually help if it's cold, because you can kind of almost quenelle it because it's that cold. That's probably too much. You don't want so much that it's going to be awkward to work with. Just put that into the center of the dough. You seeing that? And then you're folding the dough over on top of it. And you don't want any of that Nutella to escape, because if it does, you'll have a really big mess to handle. And then you can put that onto your tray. So now we're going to let these rise until they're just touching, okay? Done. Okay, so we're ready to pipe our crosses on. So we're going to do chocolate crosses. So I've got flour and cocoa, no taste really to it, and a little bit of water, and you just mix it with a fork, it's easier. You need a piping consistency. So we'll just add a bit of water. And obviously you don't want lumps either. And the oil is just to help it have a little gloss to it. Here we go. This might be about right. And we're going to pipe it using a Ziploc bag, a plastic bag with the corner snipped off, but you could use a piping bag and a nozzle if you wanted to. It's really up to you. Just put it into the bag. So you can see it's quite thick, and you need it to be that thick, otherwise it'll just run down the dough and won't do what you are hoping it to do, which is stay where it's put. Push it all down into one corner, close the bag, push all the air out, and then just snip off the tiniest amount. Make sure you know where it goes. And then we're just going to do the crosses. Super easy. And then this way. And then we're putting them into a cold oven set to 180 degrees, because that will give them an extra little rise as the oven heats up. But you could preheat the oven, you just won't need as long cooking time, baking time. And I think it's only like 15 minutes. 20 to 25, but we'll see. Because they're not all touching, it might not take that long. So we'll be back when they're done, and we're going to use a glaze to finish them off. Okay, the buns are done. Looking kind of cute, hot cross buns. And I'm going to just glaze them. So the glaze is quickly done just with some spices, some sugar and water on a stove, just until it comes together. And then just glaze away. Just be a nice shiny finish. And then, you know, all you got to do is wait for the Easter Bunny to bring some butter, unless you're at my house where I have a drawer full. And, you know, most people don't actually have butter with hot cross buns, but for me, if there's bread involved, butter has to be involved. There we go. I just want to show you what happens when you open them up. So There should be like a nice little secret pocket of Nutella in there. Look at that. Is that enough chocolate for one person? Maybe. Happy Easter.